Jennifer Mendyke here with your daily 60 seconds of biblical inspiration for your day. Today I'm going to read from 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 1. But there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privily shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that brought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. You know, a lot of us are searching. We want to know all about God we can. And so we read things and we watch things and we listen to people. But we need to be very careful what we're reading and watching and listening to. Before you do any reading, watching, listening of anything, you need to be reading this. You need to know what the Bible says. You need to understand what the Bible says. You need to study it. Because when you're listening to these other teachings, if they are saying things that are not biblical, you need to be aware of that. Because even just a tiny bit of unbiblical teaching can lead you astray. And you do not want to be led down the wrong path. You don't want to be led down a path that teaches you things that are not true about God, that are not true about the Bible. You don't want to have these unbiblical beliefs become central in your life, because then you're not on the right path anymore. It is important what we believe. It is important what we understand about God. It is eternally important. People need to be careful. We need to be careful what we're being taught. If somebody comes up with this brand new revelation, you need to test it and ensure that it meets biblical teaching. Because if it doesn't meet biblical teaching, if you're listening to it or reading it and going, wow, this doesn't sound right at all, then you need to pray that God will give you guidance, that He'll open your eyes to the truth and let you know if what you're studying is truth or not. Because the truth is important. It is vitally important. Do not let false teachers lead you down the wrong path. Do not let false teachers teach you false things about God. And I'm not saying these people are intentionally doing it. I'm not saying these people are trying to lead you astray. There are a lot of people who truly love God and want to know Him. But they come up with these false revelations, and they don't really test them against the scriptures to be sure that they are true. And then they turn around and they teach them to others. We need to be sure that what we are learning about the Lord from others is truth. Not a version of the truth, not a twisting of the truth, not a misunderstanding of the truth, but it's the truth. Some things about God are hard to learn. They're hard to understand. And there's teachings in this world that really, really teach us some false things about God. Sometimes God dealt harshly with people. And anybody who's ever been a parent understands that sometimes you have to deal harshly with your children. Because there are times when they are in severe danger and they don't even know it. And so there are times where you have to be mean. Sometimes a parent has to be mean. And God has to do that, especially in the Old Testament when they absolutely would not listen. And the entire nation was on the verge of being lost. Sometimes He had to be mean. And sometimes He had to do harsh things. That doesn't mean that God is a horrible person, that God is evil. I've heard that teaching, that the God of the Old Testament was evil, and so therefore He could not be God. God was the creator of everything. And God knows the beginning from the end. If God had to knock me on my butt today to keep me from stepping out in front of a bus that I didn't even see, would I then turn around and be mad at God? Or say that that couldn't possibly be God because he knocked me down, and God would never knock me down. That's a mean thing to do. And God wouldn't be mean. He wouldn't knock me down. But I didn't see the bus. Even after it passed, I didn't see the bus. And so I'm sitting here thinking that whoever knocked me down must have been the devil. He must have been trying to stop me from getting to my destination. When in reality, God couldn't get my attention any other way than to knock me down to keep me from stepping in front of that bus. But then I attribute his actions to the devil and call it evil. We need to pay attention to what the Old Testament says. There's a lot of people who want to just skip it, that it's not important, that I shouldn't learn it at all because it's about the Old Covenant and it's about these things that I don't need to know. You need to understand God, all of God, not just the happy, pretty parts, all of God. Stop cherry picking the God you want to serve. Because this book contains all of his story that he wants us to know. All of the story that we need to know to understand him. And if you're not going to read the whole story, you're only going to get half the truth. And if you only have half the truth, it's easy to be led astray. You need to understand who God is for yourself. Read the scriptures for yourself. Don't rely on someone else's teaching of what God was in the Old Testament or what the scriptures say. You need to read for yourself. You need to understand for yourself. Seek guidance for the things you don't understand. Reach out to those you trust for the things you don't understand. But don't just take any teaching. Don't listen to all these different voices if you don't understand the scriptures yourself. It's one thing to get a new insight into God, but it's a whole nother thing to completely change who he is. Be careful what you're learning. Do not listen to false teachers, even teachers who don't know they're false. Be very careful about what you know and understand about God, because it is an eternal decision you're making with what you're learning. It's important, and it has huge consequences. So learn for yourself. Don't just listen to others. Study for yourself. Don't just listen to others. Know God for yourself and all of God, not just part of him. Know him all. Understand all that he's done. Get the complete picture and don't be led astray. Have a wonderful day. God bless. Goodbye.